Hello there, my lovelies. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of Listening to the Voices in Our Heads, where we visit with creative minds and their creative processes. I am Jenna O'Malley, your soul writer, and our guest today is none other than Margaret Pinard. We'll get a glimpse into her life as a booktuber and authortuber, talk about some genres and tropes, and of course, mention StreamYard. It would not be an episode of Listening to the Voices in Our Heads with her if we did not let the StreamYard guru talk her craft. As always, thank you for your support, so please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell icon. Also, take care of yourself a little bit better each and every day. We know you're worth it. Let's rock it. Hello there, my lovelies. Welcome back to Season 3. Oh my goodness. Episode 1 of Listening to the Voices in Our Heads with me, Jenna O'Malley, your soul writer, and a very, very new and awesome pal I've met through the Authortubes. Hi, Margaret. How are you doing today, honey?
Hello. I'm doing great. My voice is still getting used to the day, but I am here and I am ready.
I understand. My husband shared a little too well with his cold, and I'm just getting over it. So
Sharing is not caring in that case. No.
No, thank you, Mom and Dad, for teaching our spouses to do so. Not in this case.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, my dear.
Well, thank you so much for having me here, Jenna. I'm so excited. Yes, to be making friends with you in the Authortube community. And let's see. So season 3 is opening with a historical fiction author. I know you've got the Irish roots down and all those sort of mythologies, but I've actually hopped over to the Scottish side of the pond with my books. So I've been drawn into this obsession. Basically 19th century British is where I'm at. So I've got 5 books here. We've got the series of The Keening, The Grasping Root, and Stormrack and Spindrift. And basically, this is my, what would you call it, flagship series. It's a family in Western Scotland in the Isles, the Highlands and Isles, and they are kicked off their land and they have to figure out what to do once another wave of the clearances starts in the 1820s. So we get to experience a little bit of Scotland, a little bit of Canada. We talk about immigration and family issues, and it's like family saga to the max. And hopefully people like that. The other books I have that are standalones are a YA fantasy that also involves historical because I couldn't stay away. Dulcie's Legacy is also Nova Scotia, Canada, but it's a girl entering high school who starts seeing things in the present that end up being visions into the past. And so she has to figure out how to fix that. And then my first novel, my little like young'un here, Memories Hostage, and this is the old cover copy, so it's like vintage, right? This one is a historical mystery set in the 1880s, and northern England sort of goes up into Scotland. So I couldn't stay away, as you can see. So those are my books, and I've been publishing for almost 10 years. I can be found in Portland, Oregon, and these are all self-published. So I love to be a resource for people for self-publishing. I'm connected to the lit community in Portland as well as across the world with Authortube. And I run a lot of book events, including my own launches, as well as Yola Bokaflod, which is started out as an in-person event in Portland, but has grown to be the Pacific Northwest and was digital during the pandemic and then went back. And so I've tried lots of things, and I'm, just here to live life out loud, as they say.
I keep forgetting you've been published for a decade or more, that you've been through the process for a long time.
I
Have
know.
you been doing Authortube for the same length of time, or did that come much later? A little later?
No, a little bit later. I feel like Treebeard, like explaining how old the world is to the Hobbit.
I love that reference.
Right? So no, the Authortube. So I'm a channel on YouTube that is 75% booktube, 25% Authortube, and that only started in 2020 after years of taking advice and trying things like guerrilla marketing and email newsletters and Facebook groups and all these different things as they evolved and sort of got jettisoned by the way. And finally I was like, well, I don't know how to do videos and I'm not a tech person, but I like talking to people on video Zooms and stuff, so let's try YouTube. And that was when I was like, oh, this is my jam. This is like all my actress dreams from a kid coming true, and making friends. So that was really the best connections I found, is in the YouTube community after out of all of the other things. So yeah, 2020.
And what amazes me is you're like, I'm really not that techie of a person, yet who does everyone seem to come to for StreamYard questions?
Well, that's the thing, right? So like, StreamYard is what I found other people doing because of, I think it wasn't Y'all Fest, but it was, it may have been Y'all Fest actually. There was a virtual book fest that people were talking about early 2020, and I was like, what are they all using? That's got to be easy because everyone was in on it.
Yeah.
So I found out it was StreamYard, and then I was like, okay, let's sign up, let's figure this out. And then I was part of A Mighty Blaze, which is a like 30 plus group of traditionally published authors and aspiring authors that are doing author interviews and shows on Facebook and YouTube. So they're sort of like my older, more beautiful stepsister.
Right.
And they started earlier than I did in 2020 in March. And so then I introduced them to it a year into their journey, and they were like, oh, this is so much better than Zoom. Let's do this. So that's how I sort of evangelized and spread the StreamYard gospel. But I'm still learning. Everybody's still learning together. We just had a summit for StreamYard, and I attended, and I was like, oh, look at all the cool things. So yeah, happy to spread the word.
Go, and I wish I did because I got an invite to go, and I'm like, I can't. Work won't let me. And as a teacher who teaches through Zoom, yes, StreamYard is so much better. Sorry, Zoom, it is. When it comes to doing the live stream stuff, Zoom's good if you're doing backstage planning. And in my opinion, it's good for the planning meetings. It's not good for the live streaming stuff. This is so much more intuitive, I think.
Yeah. One of the things they went over in the summit is that StreamYard is like one of their 3 goals, their missions is to keep it simple, because if you make it more complicated, yes, you have more options and knobs to turn, but like then you lose all the people who are like, I just want to do a thing, So I really, really appreciate that.
Agreed. Because the second they added breakout rooms to Zoom, the learning curve went up, I think.
Right.
A little much. So, as part of your YouTube community, what is Voltron Force, and what is the most recent thing you all did, or what's coming up next? And 80s baby, 90s kid loving on that.
Yes. So Voltron Force is just like a fun name that we made. I actually wanted to call it A-Team first, but apparently that was too old for the crowd, so we went with Voltron. But yeah, 80s baby nerd names. It's basically, there were 3 of us that started it: Sandy Golston, Booktube TV, Coffee Over Apples, and I. And we were like, let's do productivity sprints because, let's have fun with this. And then we added Cachet in December, Cachet Warren from Shay with the Hobbies. And so we've got 4 now. So now we're a true like A-Team / I don't know how many are in Voltron. But yeah, it's just
I think there's 5.
No, there's 4.
If you don't count the princess, there's 4, right?
The princess.
Isn't there? It's been so long since I've watched Voltron, apparently. Maybe I'm thinking a different.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know what there is in the cartoon, but there's 4 of us on BookTube. Steph is the BookTube only, and then Sandy and Shay and I are BookTube, Authortube. So yeah.
You're really getting everybody's experience then, and really blending 2 areas that, while the content overlaps, the content producers don't always seem to
I don't know that I would see them like clashing. I do see authors being confused about how to talk to writers but also appeal to readers. And actually, there's going to be a panel that SD Houston is putting on with that that we were brainstorming about, as well as readers and writers talking to each other, which is a secret project that's going to happen in June with another BookTube friend. So yeah, more on that later.
And you're always, it seems, 6 months ahead in your planning now as well. That's just amazing. Trying to get on that model's not easy. How long did it take you to get in that habit? I didn't have this question planned, but that's a habit forming thing. Did it
Well,
take 3 months
yeah,
of doing
it's a conveyor belt or a treadmill kind of thing. Like once you're on, you have to stay on the same thing. And I will say, for books, I got off it. So I used to be in the nano editing, last book, sorry, nano drafting, last book editing, publishing, nano. Like there was a 3 book kind of cycle. And
Mhm.
then 2019, it was like, nope, done. So that's
Oh,
why I've been like
no.
focusing on other stuff. But with the planning for the YouTube, it has been you know, it's correlated with mental health and ability to focus. So over
Agreed.
Christmas, I was visiting family and, you know, got to see my nephew for the first time ever, and he's a year and a half because he lives in Japan and COVID. So that was super special, and I put up these like 15 minutes of fun, kind of like random things where I was just streaming to say hello to people, but I was not in the space to engage with people. So I set aside that time, and then I was just sort of like at the end of December, and then end of December, like New Year's, I was like, okay, we're ready to go, go, go. And so I just started making a list and like looking at all the people I followed and like who do I want to connect with and how can I make it a unifying theme, and just started sending out emails. And so I had a really productive like 4 days, and then I was like, and we're done.
Wow.
I don't know, that it sounds kind of like an ADHD diagnosis, but you know.
It's just how it happened. And I think a lot of us are feeling that the holidays are over. I have to get back in my groove. Very much so. Guilty as charged. So
Right, right.
appreciating that. 4 days though. That's amazing. It sounds like it's months, but wow.
Well, I mean, that's the initial part, and then you do all the follow-up, and then it's sort of less intense. But yeah, I've been breaking it up with weeding out in the backyard and sort of like trying to be more balanced with things. But there, I was like 6 hours of planning a day. Like,
Oh wow, that's intense. So
uh,
speaking of plans, which ones do you have for the next month or so?
plans for the next month or so.
No, Black
Oh,
History's on
it's
the horizon.
February. Yes,
It's
it's
February.
February. So thank you for asking this. I've dropped a few announcements, but I haven't had like a dedicated video. Black Authortuber Readathon is something I just decided to start for February because I was like, I want to do this thing to support Black Authortubers because, as any Authortuber knows, it's hard to get your voice, your name, your voice rising to the surface so anyone sees you and finds you and your books. And so Black History Month, I thought, why not highlight Black Authortubers, because we've been seeing them on streams that we do, and like help other people find them because they have some great books. So I just started a spreadsheet on Google Docs, and it's got like names of books and the authors and the buy link, and you sign up and you just basically find a buddy for a book you want to read. And so I'm doing 3, and my co-host Beth Ann Bruninga Sokolar, who's a booktuber, is also doing 3 or maybe 4. And we've had a few other people join, but we'd really like to get the word out more. So it's the beginning of the month, and you can definitely still sign up, find a partner, do a buddy read. Some of them are really short, some of them are collections. So definitely encourage you to join.
And if you want, I can put the link down below and help you out a little bit more, my friend. This
Thank
event,
you.
it's amazing. Oh my
Thank
goodness.
you.
Thank you for thinking of it and sharing it with us. So, as far as other things you have planned, do you have anything outside of that event going on?
Um, let's see. Yes. I was gonna drop this at the end so it stays in people's memory, but
We can repeat.
okay. All right. So basically, I do my own productivity sprint on the first Friday of every month. So that's usually around noon Pacific, or, you know, and sometimes I push it a little bit later so to catch the East Coast people after work. But that's basically bring your book, bring your knitting, bring your writing project, and, you know, sprint with friends. So that's coming up this week. And the readathon is all month, but also just like a clarion call in the future, I started my first readathon last year, March of the Moderns, and March is very full of readathons. So I'm switching it over to May just to keep the alliteration going. But the moderns, what I mean is I participate I participate in Victober, which is Victorian reading in October. And then they leave us at 1901 and we have no readathon for the next period in history. So from 1901 to 1945, I thought these are great books. These are also like a lot of forgotten books and a lot of domestic books. If you've heard of Persephone, they're a publisher, not in London, in Bath now. And they're like forgotten women's voices and they have like such tender themes and no one's heard of them. So that was sort of like the seed of the idea, but also expanding to books written around the world, books written under colonialism that were voices that were, you know, also forgotten. So trying to get diverse books and the themes of that period. So if you're familiar with World War I, it's like disillusionment and it's LGBTQ persecution often. And it's also, let's see, what else did I put in my prompts?
Would it be looking at like local flair stories? Because I'm getting, wait a minute, what's going on in that era? We just got out of Prohibition. There's a lot of like Southwest local flair stories. I'm thinking that would really fit that era too, that often gets forgotten because like you have the start of the sci-fi genre really truly in there and things of that nature.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
H.G. Wells, like he comes in there for certain. Yeah. So all the things that people don't think of, but like the beginning of modern literature is in that period also. So yeah, so encouraging people to do that. And it's a similar type setup. I think I have prompts. I did a bingo board last year. I may try a few different things. You know, it would be nice if I could find a co-host, but like, I don't know anyone else who's like as enthusiastic about this period. So
well, there's some former lit majors running around amongst us author-tubers. I'm sure it would not be difficult for you to find someone who would want to do that. Who would go, yeah, that time period is often skipped.
That's a sweet spot. Yeah, that's a good idea. So if anyone knows, call me.
Call her. For sure. So we did get into a little bit with your experience with StreamYard, kind of went a little out of order in the conversation, but as far as what is it something you do on the routine to impart your knowledge? Like, do you just like, hey, if you're planning something, let me show you how to help set up run questions? Do you have a specific office hour, come work with me, things of that nature?
Well, so what I've done as like the tech person for A Mighty Blaze is when we switched over, I had a sort of like every week I would do an office hour kind of thing. And for people who came, what's best is, have you ever been a guest? Okay, here's how to be a guest, and here's the limited controls that a guest has. Have you ever hosted one? Okay, here's how you be a host and like the little more diverse button pushing you can do. And if you have an account and you want to do your own, here's how you set one up. Here's how you connect destinations. So there's like 3 layers of sort of getting bigger and bigger, and then you can, you know, feel comfortable and start experimenting on your own with all this stuff. I keep saying this and I need to do it. I need to do a form. So I'm channeling Barrett Laurie here, and I know I need to put together a form so that I can get these questions answered, because it's important to know, like, are you on the free version or the paid version, and sort of like what you have access to at the beginning. And if I don't know if you've guested or hosted or have the free or paid, like, then I can't really help you yet. So I need to like do an intake form, but that will come. In the meantime, I'm just doing every other Sundays with StreamYard, which is like an hour where I'll be there and can answer questions or like demo new features, because they just came out with new features. So yeah.
Heard. The giveaway feature also was the one that I caught. You're kind of playing around with those.
Yeah.
Videos. I'm like,
isn't it fun?
Thank goodness these are able to be go and found in post, because even what you've done already, some of it repeats a little bit because they're probably common questions, to be fair. But just thank you. Thank you for doing that. It's been a huge help.
Yeah, of course. You're welcome. It's one of those things where, you know, because I am an author who is in transition and like definitely not making a living from selling books, but, you know, trying to find different ways of income streams and whatnot. I try to envision like, how can I package my knowledge so that people will pay for it? But in the meantime, I'm like, I just want to help authors who are on YouTube. So
I understand that statement. Like,
yeah.
That to my editor about this very series. I'm not going to ask people to pay me for it. I want them to have the option to not worry about a financial burden with it.
Right. Yeah. But at the same time, you're like, I'm doing all this as marketing, right? So we're kind of like, this is how I'm presenting myself to the world. But I guess the beginning goal, the end goal, I don't know which one it would be, is to sell books. But it's fun along the way. So then you get distracted.
Exactly. The distraction mode is what kills sometimes. And you admitted recently, even when SC Houston and I were visiting with you, you felt a little distracted from some original goals and we're trying to get back to them. So as far as that realm goes, booktube versus authortube, you said it's like 75-25. Is that literally the time consumption as far as video making, live streaming, editing goes, or no?
No, it's not background time at all. It's the videos. It's like out of the videos that I put out, that's basically what people will see. It started with the goal in the beginning of 2021, if you look back in my goals, that I was going to do at least 2 author focused videos per month. And at first I struggled and I was like, what do I say? I did like a research rabbit hole one and I did, an interview or whatever, but excuse me, I struggled to get it in there because there was so much book stuff that I wanted to talk because that was so much more fun. So, but now I've got mostly authors coming on for the Patreon bookish chat. And I'm also doing an author panel a month. And so, yeah, it's becoming more natural. It's becoming more routine to have like Authortube content. But, when we were talking earlier about the being in community with writers, but also appealing to readers, I have to keep that in mind. And that's kind of where I am with the sharing both niches. I'm a reader. Like I read all the time, even when I'm not writing and I'm in a funk, like I'm reading. So that's definitely still something I want to keep up. So you asked about February monthly plans, and I put out a reading goals for 2022 video recently that talked about what I want to try to fill each month to diversify my reading. So it's an ebook, an audiobook, an indie pub book, a BIPOC authored book, a nonfiction book, and an owned book. So those are the sort of goals that I'm trying to like tick off each time and keep myself grounded and diverse in my reading rather than always reading historical fiction or always reading like, white ladies, for example. Yeah. So for February, I've got like things that fit into those niches that are Black History Month focused or, Black Authortube or Readathon focused. So for BookTube, it's Yellow Wife by Sadiqa Johnson on audio, Parable of the Sower on ebook, which I have not yet read, which I know is a travesty.
You'll love it. I think you'll love it.
I think so. Blood Like Magic, which is a buddy read for the Black Authortube or Readathon. Super excited about that one. Cast, which is my nonfiction pick because I just got that at the Barnes & Noble 50% off hardcover. Like, I'm so excited. There's so much to do in February. Yeah, good stuff.
Oh, man.
I know, I sort of got us off topic. Sorry.
No, you're perfectly fine. As a person who loves reading and does a lot of it too, I'm like, wow, good book, need to read it. So, wow, you've got a busy month. Those aren't, I don't want to say they're long reads. Once you get into them, I'm sure the page flow will go quickly, but they're not short books, all of them either. That's a lot in a short month.
Yeah. And are you a David Tennant fan?
No, not at all.
Do you know the skits that he does with, I can't remember her name. She's a famous British actress, but the ones where she's like, I'm not bothered. Like,
yes.
So that is me with any TBR. Like if Cass takes February and March to finish, not bothered about it. No. Oh my goodness. It takes what it takes. Like we appreciate books where they are, just like people. So I'm good with it.
Very true. I need to remember that for my students. Thank you. They need to hear that conversation soon. So Are there any, to kind of wrap back around, are there any author-tubers or booktubers with whom that you've not worked yet that you would love to collaborate with in the future?
Ooh, yes. So you said this one before, and I had to, put a little list in there to remind myself of my like dream goals. So, um, author tubers. Do you know the Courtney Project?
I only, kind of show my students videos from her channel because I'm obsessed. So, not the school
Awesome.
appropriate ones, to be fair. There are some that are not, but the ones
Right.
that are and that are on topic, they get. So, yeah.
Right. She's
Admire her.
amazing. I mean, talk
Mhm.
about a powerhouse and talk about someone who's so honest and transparent and like living the life she wants to. Like she's an inspiration. So I may actually be on her channel with my covers because she did the cover critiques series she's just started, and I submitted that a few days after SD Houston, and SD Houston's covers got done like a few days ago. So I was like super psyched. So
Ooh,
she did really
wow.
well, so I'm very excited. I'm wondering how mine are how mine are gonna stand up to the pressure, but we'll see. They're older, 2015 to 2019, so cover refresh could be in train for these books. I'm okay with that. So yeah, Courtney Project, dream goal. Let's see. Angela from Literature Science Alliance. She reads a lot of sci-fi fantasy as well as books. She challenges herself and like she tricks herself into reading historical fiction, and I'm like, okay, you need to like own up to that, girl. So that would be really fun. Kazan at Always Doing. She's a booktuber who is a translator in Japan, and she's just like got the most amazing breakdown of romance tropes and like reading books that are not her experience, but on the spectrum of LGBTQ experiences for romance, and just like
Mhm.
really clear about consent and like things that are way out of my ken. So I learn a lot by watching her. So that would be an amazing collaboration. And also Kim at Native Lady Book Warrior. So she's my favorite indigenous booktuber, and she does these amazing vlogs these days that are like all about going around Arizona and the reservation where she is. She does a lot of stuff for Indigathon, which I have participated in twice now, and
Wow.
just again learning a whole lot from her. So I would love to do something with her.
Wow. I hope those
Yeah.
aspirations come true for you and
Right.
soon. Those are some awesome goals to have, and I don't blame you on picking some of those names.
Goals. I mean, goals are like aspirations or dreams. So I'm just like shooting for the moon because you asked. So thank you
Umbrella
that way.
says, "Yes, go for it." So you mentioned tropes and genres and things within the last moment. So favorite genre versus least favorite genre, favorite trope versus least favorite trope.
Okay, so I struggle with this one, but I'll tell you why. So genre is definitely historical fiction, but also historical fantasy. So because I like fantasy and historical, I'll land on that answer and do
Mhm.
both. And I'm specifically thinking of Susanna Kearsley here. Are you a Susanna
Yes.
Kearsley fan? It's
Yes.
mostly historical, but there's a little bit of fantasy in like the universe of her books, which I love. And least favorite genre would be horror because that's not entertainment to me. That's just scaring the living bejesus out of me. So and like making me sit like this, which I don't need more of. Thank you very much. I mean, well
Mhm.
done, technical skill, but don't need it. Yeah. Tropes. So when I started BookTube, I had an issue with people calling them tropes, and I have since abandoned this position because it's obviously a losing battle. But a
Sorry.
trope a trope is like a literary device. It's not a thing how people talk about it in BookTube. But
Agreed.
that aside, um, I my mind doesn't categorize these by trope. So it's hard to say that I always love this or I always love that when that's not how my brain organizes it. I did try to go through my story graph and like scan and try to think, okay, what's that plot? What's that plot? What am I drawn to in that? Um, so what I came up with was I do like the enemies to lovers in Sunshine. So like there's obviously some of that where like people think something about each other and then eventually that falls away and then they
Mm.
fall in love and like that's great. Um, sacrificing the love that you have for someone to save someone's life, that's also one that I really like. And I'm thinking specifically of Must Love Breaches by
Oh,
Angela Quarles.
yes. Good choice.
Yeah, so that was one of my favorites. That ending scene when yeah. Anyway, that's a time travel romance in case anyone is interested. And Angela Quarles has been living my dream life in is it Alabama, opening a romance bookstore, like as an indie author. Like what? So if anyone is near there, go visit Angela Quarles bookstore. And then Unmasking a Conspiracy. That's also a good one I like, especially in fantasy. So I was thinking of A Murder of Crows by Anne Bishop for this one, that series of the others, where it's like someone who's in danger, but then they also figure out like there's a whole big system that needs tackling or toppling. So I love that, like inverting the power structure. So those are favorite tropes.
Oh, wow. Good choices.
Thank you. And I
Good
get
choices.
recommendations with each of them, as you'll note. Yeah. And then least favorite are the ones where like it's basically lazy writing. Like the characters have no agency and they're like, oh, one of those. Or miscommunication where it's like really stupid that the two people didn't get the one thing that would have changed their lives and they just like, oh no. And you're like, yeah. So those types of things really get to me and they're not my favorite. Yeah.
I don't blame you. And I agree. Sometimes that, especially when it is obviously not done well, it is, if not lazy writing, we can see you have growth as a writer.
Yeah.
Or my students.
Or as a person, because sometimes having no agency means that you don't see that for yourself. So,
right.
Yeah.
Now, if that's a satirical character, that's a different story.
Can I turn the tables on you on this one and ask what your favorite tropes are and recommendation if you have one?
Sure. I'm guilty of the enemies to lovers thing. I could give you a bookcase example on those because sadly you took the one I normally go to as the prime example of the one I like most. I like the enemies to lovers thing so much that was probably my first novel I even wrote anyway, so now that I think about it. Least favorite, unresolved trauma for the sake of, well, someone needs to be hurt. Okay, but where's the character growth? How does it help the plot? Is it there just so you can have it there? No.
Right.
Because, yeah, that's just my least favorite one. That one seems to not start a debate or anything. Since certain other series of vampire ilk with the sparkly kind came out, trauma manipulation seems to be, it's there because it has to be. And I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be.
Right. It's just like a extra, what's it called? Not extradition, not extramarital. Extra, not needed rape scenes. Like that's exactly the kind of thing that I think you're talking about. It's like you're doing this, just no. Yeah.
We get that character is that way and that they're causing issues. Can it stop now? Please, thank you.
Yeah.
If it comes full circle, that's a different story. But otherwise, to get into a little bit different kind of debate, which book that became a movie should have a redo and why?
Okay, so here I have sort of a tricky answer. Most books that I love, I do not watch the screen adaptation of. The exceptions to this are Lord of the Rings, because they're both amazing in their own rights, and Outlander, but that's also like a different thing. It became a different thing, and I'm not as enamored with the series as I am with the books, and I'm also kind of like sort of off the books now too, so I don't know. Maybe it'll come back. Who knows?
I need to keep in mind my husband's probably watching this. Honey, I'm sorry you're hearing this. I don't want to see the end of Outlander because I have started reading the books. Sorry, honey.
You don't want to see the end of it. Like,
I don't want to see this TV series any longer.
Oh, okay.
We saw the first couple seasons.
Got it.
And I finally got into reading the books. Yeah. No, I don't want to see any more of the series.
I've read the books. The thing is with watching books and screen adaptations, you have an image in your mind, at least if you are a, whatever that word is for someone who creates visual images.
If you
Would
have
you stop?
Fantasia versus aphantasia, and Cat Mom understands the, yep, Cat
He
Mom.
obviously wants a cameo. So, hey, everybody, this is Bean.
Hi,
He's
Bean.
meowing and meowing. Hello.
Cat Mom didn't stop because Cat Mom doesn't care. We love kitties around here on this channel.
Okay. Meowy, meowy. What was I saying? Book to screen adaptations, Fantasia, aphantasia. Thank you. So I create, visual images, not like exact people, obviously, but like when they don't look like they do on the screen, it's overwritten, and then I lose whatever I had in my imagination. And it took me a while to realize that's what was happening. And then I was like, oh, I like that. It's like I don't know, capitalism overriding my brain. So I was like, no.
I have a good example for this one. What's his name from Harry Potter? He was played by Kenneth Branagh. Gilderoy Lockhart.
There you go.
I hate the movie version. I love the actor-director that played him.
Yeah.
Do not like that choice.
Interesting.
I would have made. Really well done. Not what I saw in my head at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I told I'm not the only person who felt that way. I don't choices I would have made. Controversial, yes. But I understand what you mean. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say the other case where you see the movie that's based on a book, I don't go back and read the book. I don't think many people do that, but I have heard of people who do, and I'm not one of them. So if I've seen a movie version, I'm going to be thinking of those voices and those faces. And so reading the book is going to be like a kind of pointless.
It would put the cart before the horse for you.
The only exception to that is Austenland, which is like one of my favorite movies. And so I needed to read the book to see, because everyone said it was different. So that was a very fun exploration. I did that as a buddy read last January. So that was super fun.
Wow. So how did you take the ending of the book for that one? I guess I should ask.
I don't remember the ending of the book now. It's over a year ago, Jenna. I've watched the movie so many times.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right. Yeah.
So, which underrated book needs to become a movie or a TV series?
Oh. Do you have any inkling what I'm going to say here? It's not underrated, but I can't figure out why it hasn't been turned into a series yet, which is Maisie Dobbs.
Fair enough.
Historical mystery, epic heroine, complicated love story, like scenes of early modern, May of the Moderns era mystery, and like all these different backstory things that pop up that have beautiful revelation possibility potential for the series. And I'm like, why is this not a TV series?
Agreed.
I am on book 17 and I am still so gripped by each one. So Jacqueline Winspear, she's not an Authortuber, but I mean, I would love to interview her. So yeah. I can't believe it's running that long. I know.
Oh my God. Is that the newest book is 17? Because I'm like 110.
Yeah, I think Consequences of Fear is the latest one, and I think that's number 17.
Okay.
The only one I haven't read is the side book, the World War I sort of standalone that's in the same universe. But I have that book. I'm just saving it for a really bad night.
That's a bad night? Wow.
No, like it's a comfort read. So when I'm really in a bad place and I need to read something to take me away.
Understood.
Yeah.
So if money were not an object, bringing it back to your books, who would you cast? You can pick a standalone or the series. She's like, I got an answer.
No, I mean, I don't. So I for whatever reason, I don't think of actors and actresses. Maybe it's because I'm not very good at remembering their names and they change so quickly. But I did a search and I found like the face that could work for Sheena, who is the young woman on my last cover. Let's see if it doesn't blur. There we go.
There we go.
Sheena, and I thought of Lily Collins. And then I was just like searching attributes, and then she popped up, and I'm like, that could be Sheena. I think she could do a good job.
Pretty choice. Not like supermodel bombshell pretty, in my opinion, but yeah, really good choice. Good actress.
Yeah, that part I don't know. I'm just trying to like find a picture, and reverse picture searching is not one of my tech specialties. So I was just like,
I've been doing that lately to do character aesthetic videos for my own books per fan request. Not going well either. I agree. It's a pain.
Well, at the beginning of the series, I mean, I don't have a series Bible. I'm not that serious about it, but I had like a mood board that had pictures I'd found online that I use as like, oh yeah, this is what that character looks like. But they're random, like, agent studios. They don't have names attached to them. They're not famous people. They're just like models who have their pictures up on some agency site. And when I searched like blonde hair, brown eyes, or like petite, dark hair, pale skin, like that sort of thing showed up. And so that's what I stuck with. But I don't know who those people are. So
That's actually a really good idea for writers who do have a Fantasia then. If they need that picture reference, a
yeah,
modeling
that would
agency
be.
website. Noted.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give that tip to one or two of my students actually, because
cool.
that's something we're working on learning how to write with this year, apparently. Thank you.
Yeah.
So for I want to backtrack a little bit and throw a question in here. For the historical fantasy, like which came first for you? The love of historical fiction or the love of historical fantasy?
Historical fiction, because like, fifth grade, I think is when I read Johnny Tremaine, and I was like, that's so cool. It's a real person in the past, in the Revolutionary War, and he got mad and he called someone a name. Like,
Literally, that's the basis of the whole book. If you've never read it, guys. It is
classic.
literally a dude got mad and throwed some shade during a war.
Yeah, threw silver at somebody. Yeah. So it just made history come alive, and so that is sort of what hooked me in when I got into um, through high school, through college, whatever. And yeah, the way that you can think of people as real from the past is basically the big hook. Um, Fantasy is a different place. I think I mentioned this and you were on board. The Melanie Ron books, the Dragon Prince series, that was junior high. My brother and I fought over those books because we only had one copy, and we'd like steal them back and forth. So, but those are like sexy books, and
They are. The fact that you and your brother both were fighting over them says something.
yeah. So it was mostly about politics and romance and power, but there was also dragons. So, the fantasy. I think about writing projects sometimes like, what if I had the ability to create the world that I want? And I go, but would people read that book? Because I feel like it's not a good escapism, because then you're dragged back to reality. So I don't know what genre that would be. So I don't know if I could write fantasy like that, because I don't know what it would devolve into. But yeah. But I love reading it. So there you go.
I was just about to say, do we expect a historical fantasy from you in the near future?
I don't think so. The project that I have been working on and put down is definitely historical fiction, 1893 Chicago. Did lots of research on that. And the novellas that I have recently started outlining are in this world. So yeah, we may be returning to the Isle of Mull.
Now wait a second. You live on the West Coast. Nova Scotia's wrong side of the continent from you? Am I remembering my geography right? What got an interest in that area? I mean, as a fellow lover of Scotland and someone who has a Scottish character, enough said. The brogue is enough said. But Nova Scotia. You chose that over the US. Interesting.
Yeah.
Why'd you go there?
I know, and I'm struggling with putting the character in the U.S. context. One of the things I learned or concluded was that I was writing about history because the stuff that is closer to now and to current reality is too painful. But if you place it in history, people have a way to relate or like start to understand something without the pressure of being defensive about their own situations. And I feel like maybe that's why I chose Canada instead of the US, because it's like it's safer. It's not me, although my family did come from Quebec. So
There's the connecting other thread.
but it's far. Nova Scotia is pretty far from Quebec when you look at how small communities were in the 18th century. So Nova Scotia was the place that immigrants would have come to first, and so that's what I chose for that. I also, when I lived in Washington, D.C., took a road trip up there for a week and was just like, this place is beautiful. Like, yes, let's do something here. So yeah, that was obviously a big appeal too.
Having actually been there probably helps you visualize it and write it to a degree as well.
Yes, yes. And this one, so this one, the young adult one, is the one I wrote based in Nova Scotia first. And yeah, I remembered where I was. I sort of dropped pins in places, and then I went back on Google Maps and was like thinking about the harbor and the mine history and the communities that were involved, and just sort of got fascinated by that after the visit. So if you're curious, there is no end to ideas. That's all there is to it.
So as we're winding down then, my friend, any questions for me?
Yes. Okay, so I have a big question here, which is when you started writing your series, your Cinewaferous,
Really good job. Yes.
the Alliance and the other series that you're working on as well, did you have a grand vision of where you wanted to go with this, or how you're going to publish, or like where you saw yourself? Because that is not my experience, but I think that other people do. And even if it's secret, you don't have to share it, but just like relate how you started out and whether there was a grand vision, and maybe if it's changed, if you wanted to share.
Well, it has indeed changed. I actually, book one, very little of it still remains from when I first started writing it, but I started writing this back early 2000s. And yeah, I did a lot of writing through high school and college, got into teaching, and took a 13-year hiatus from writing because I was teaching it all the time and creative process trained and whatever. 2020 hit. My husband's like, you lost a 2-hour commute. You are bored because you're finishing your work time because it's locked down and the kids all got freebie grades that 9 weeks. So yeah, we were one of those school districts where I worked at the time where they said if the kid had a passing C or higher, they didn't have to do anything their fourth 9 weeks. They would just get a freebie fourth. So the only way you had to do anything the fourth 9 weeks is if you were failing and had to get to passing.
Wow.
So imagine what my workload went from. And I'm bored out of my mind. So I started writing, and this was the one story again and again. The husband's like, this, out of everything I've read that you wrote as a teenager and young adult, this is the story that'll go somewhere. Take and run with it. And it just so happened that earlier that day on a walk, I had listened to a documentary on the Great London Fire of 1666, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm like, what if that was caused by a fairy or a werewolf by accident? Wait a minute. I think I know what time period this story needs to be in to make me actually finish writing it. It was meant to have been 5 books in one saga. Now it's 3 sagas long and a total of upwards of 13 books.
Wow.
That was not planned. That all has evolved since February 14, 2021, when book 1 was published. So
And
no, it was not intended. It just grew.
Got it. So that's funny because when I did Remnants and I was on the second book, I could see like maybe 7, maybe 8, and then I got to the third one and I was like, no, I'm done. So anything can change. Just to give any readers a hint of the behind the scenes is that it could go long, it could go short. Writers are humans.
At this point I'm at a and I said this in my most recent episode for the end of season 2 with my editor. It's almost I'm at a point where the first saga, the first 5 books, the last 2 books are going to write themselves because I have so many seeds planted and breadcrumbs between the first 3 that the last 2 books is just me wrapping stuff up.
Does that mean that they're already outlined?
I know how book 5 ends.
I can never see my endings. I'm so jealous.
It's not pretty. That's the problem. Book 5 explains how they end up in the United States. Because our era is King Charles II's on the throne, kinda, in England. Yeah, kinda. Depends on who you talk to. Whether or not he was actually king. So
yeah.
It explains how they get stateside. So that way in book 6, it picks up in 2015. They're immortal.
Interesting.
Not that far.
Okay. Interesting.
So,
that's cool.
Yeah, vampires, werewolves, they can live that far.
So do you do any like vision collage stuff for like when you said no grand vision, but you now have 13 books in a series kind of sort of planned out? Like, do you have this is where I want to be, this is how I want my life to look like at the end of that kind of thing?
I do, but unfortunately I can't quit the day job to make that happen right now. One, I'm one of 3 teachers in my whole school that isn't going through the rotating door right now. Our turnover is very, very high. This is the first time in my career as an English teacher where I have people who can headhunt and me as much as a math teacher gets headhunted.
Wow.
And
I know what that means. Yeah. That's a different world.
Yeah. So, and it's just the shortage.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, there were 300,000 plus unfilled positions in the US. It's doubled, I'm sure.
Wow.
I'm sure. So, the other thing is making cash flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would love to, and hopefully the end of 2021 we'll see the beginnings of a pivot to making that happen. We'll see.
At the end of 2022.
Is there more of you in there? I'm sorry, it's Saturday. But yes, 2022. The end of 2022 will hopefully see a pivot. So as far as things for you though this year, you've been very busy. You've mentioned multiple things you're doing. So let's get a quick recap of your upcoming events, launches, where to find you next.
Okay, so like I'm acting like I'm in a TikTok. Sorry. So let's see. It's February now, so we've got the readathon going now, although it's early, so you can still jump in. It's the bit.ly link is just BAT readathon to make it real easy. After that, I've got my regular booktube content every month. I've got my regular Authortube panels and author chats every month. We've got May of the Moderns coming up, which is hopefully going to be like a bigger thing this year and have more people join in. I think I had like 13 buddy reads or something ridiculous. 13 people buddy reading last year, and I was coordinating, so that was fun. But hopefully we can make it bigger and more fun. I'm trying to think, but it's going to be in the past, so yeah, I'm just looking forward to connecting with more people, making authentic connections like this where we're on each other's channels, we're talking about real things and goals and talking about our lives. and not what is coming, but what do I want to come? This is like my, here's my heart. I want to get another book out, so we'll see. We'll see if that's in novella form or the Chicago book. Who knows? You have to stay tuned and follow me to find out.
Well, I hope one or the two or both work out for you here soon. It sounds like you're planning to put some work into them, but time being what it may be, we'll see what allows that to happen is where we're at.
Right.
Awesome. So shout outs to others in your community before we sign off for the day, my friend.
Yes. So in the Authortube community, I mean, besides yourself, for lovely self for having me here. Thank you. I wanted to do shout outs to the people who have most recently like gotten me off my duff, I will say, and like, you know, had me level up my game. So Shannon at SD Houston, she's been so on the ball with her marketing chats as well as just like enthusiasm and coordinating and collaborating. So she's an inspiration. Barrett Laurie, since the summer, has been one of these people that is just magnetic and like so enthusiastic for other people, and that positivity really is just driving our community, I feel like. The people who behind the scenes or IRL people like Elizabeth Mitchell, who is my partner for Yola Book Float, is also a fantastic suspense like crime writer in her own right, indie author up in my Portland area, and my patrons such as Allison. So I started on Patreon. It's one of those things where, is this right for me, right? But now over a year later, I've got people in a book club. I've got people who I mail postcards to and get book mail. And you know, we don't use the messaging and Patreon very often, but we do keep in touch and talk about the things. And it's sort of like a bigger universe than the digital one. So it's people who are really there because they want to support you. And so I just want to say thank you to them.
And thank you very much for doing everything you do for our community, my friend. If you want to check her out, see the links below. Go get one of her books. A bunch of us in the Authortube community have been reading them lately. They're amazing. So go and encourage her to put out more writing for the world to enjoy. Go and support all the things she's doing. And definitely, my lovelies, of course, we couldn't end this without saying a reminder. Take care of yourself a little bit better each and every day. I think we know they're worth it.
Yes.
Thank you again, Margaret. You have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Jenna. Bye.